I need to start this video before I crash out about the fact that my library is no longer letting me log into Libby. Anyway, welcome or welcome back to my channel. It is 5:30. It was 5 a.m. but like I said, I had a mini crisis this morning, but that's okay. We're gonna start the timer. We're gonna get to reading. We're gonna do 12 hours today, 12 hours tomorrow. I was actually hoping to do more than 12 hours today, which is why I woke up at 5 a.m. but also I have a doctor's appointment this afternoon, so I'm not sure. Either way, the goal is to at least do 4 hours. Now, if you're a returning viewer, you know that I'm not in my usual location. I'm actually at my dad's house right now, so I brought a big stack of books with me. I brought my monthly TBR, and then I did bring every book I have left on my 26 books I want to read in 2026, so that's what this stack is. And then I did also bring my Kindle because I thought that I could read some books on Libby. So hopefully I can figure that out. If I can't, maybe that means we need to take a trip to the library and see if someone there can help me. I really don't want to do that though because I hate asking for help. But anyway, that was enough yapping. We've got to get to reading, so let's start the timer. I also forgot to mention that I will be stopping the timer anytime I'm not reading. So if anything comes up throughout the day, like I said, my doctor's appointment, I'm just gonna pause the timer and hopefully I can get to 12 hours today. These first 4 hours actually flew by, and I think it's because I've been toggling between 2 books, but I've decided which book I want to focus on first. Both books are from my monthly TBR, and I am determined to finish my monthly TBR this month because I almost never finish my monthly TBR. But the first book we'll talk about is Paladin's Grace. I don't read a ton of fantasy, but I was very excited about this book. I got this in a book basket exchange that I did with some of my friends for my birthday, which was so fun, by the way. But literally the only thing I knew going into this was that she was a perfumist, and this had been sitting on my TBR for so long. So when I finally got the physical copy, I was very excited. But we have Stephen, who is a paladin, and his god had died years before. Since he's a paladin with no god, he's kind of lost in the world and starts serving some type of like rat king, I think it is. I don't know, that part kind of confuses me a little bit. And I'm only on page 74, so we're still doing some world building. But then one day, Stephen stumbles upon Grace, who is our main female character, and she's the perfumist that I was talking about earlier. And he like essentially hides her because she's trying to run away from these guys that are after her. And the way that he hides her in his coat is so funny. I don't think I can get into the details. And also, if you're going to pick up this book, I feel like it's like kind of a fun little surprise on the way that he does it because it's not detailed on the back. But I am very much enjoying this one so far. I don't read a ton of fantasy books, so I definitely think at least so far this one is good if you were trying to get into fantasy, or if you're like me and you just don't read a ton of fantasy. It's not very complicated at all, so if you're a beginner to fantasy, you could definitely read this. I'm also very excited for this because most of the fantasy books I've read, the main characters are quite young. They're like sometimes 20 max. They're normally still teenagers, but in this book, our main characters, I think they're 37 and 32. So I'm very excited for that because I don't know, it's like, why are these teenagers like running around and like doing this wild stuff like that? This is crazy to me. Or they're like immortal beings, but they are like perceived as teenagers. I don't know, it's kind of weird. So I'm kind of glad that they're a little bit older. But there is one thing that I'm not enjoying right now, and that is a lot of their thoughts are in italics. And to me, it just doesn't make sense why they're in italics. And I will say I am not a grammar queen, okay? I'm very bad at grammar, but that is annoying me a lot. And it's not that like their thoughts themselves are annoying me, just the fact that they're in italics is annoying me because it kind of pulls me out of the story for a second. I don't know why, okay? I don't know, but I find it annoying, and I'm just wondering if anyone else had that experience too, because this book is pretty popular. So if you read this book and the italics bothered you, let me know, okay? Because it's bothering me and I need to feel validated. But anyways, I also started listening to the Iliad. I listened to a good bit of this actually. I made it about halfway through chapter 5. The audiobook says I have 10 hours and 30 minutes left. Now I have been listening to it on 1.2 times speed because the full audiobook itself is over 15 hours long, and I just know I'm not going to be able to finish this book in this video. And I might still not finish this book in this video, which is okay. I will update you on my thoughts later if I don't finish it in this video. But this was also on my June TBR, and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna finish this in June. I still don't know if I'm gonna finish it in June. I think I'm just gonna read it slowly. So today I've only been putting it on when like I worked out this morning, when I got ready for the day, when I tried to mess with my library card. I listened to it while eating breakfast. Like, things like that I just threw on this audiobook because it's on my monthly TBR, and also because I didn't want to stop the timer. I want to stop the timer as little as possible today, especially because I'm worried about the fact that I have a doctor's appointment later today, so I'm worried about doing all of those things and still reading at least 12 hours today. But also, this is just one of those books that's going to be a slow read for me. I read classics pretty slower, especially one like this. I think it's an epic poem. I don't fully know. It's really hard to tell when I'm listening to it. I do have the physical copy of this book, but unfortunately I left it at my apartment. I don't know what I was thinking because I knew that this was on my monthly TBR, but I for some reason just forgot. So I've been listening to this one just on and off, and I will probably do that throughout the next couple of days until I finish the audiobook. But so far so good. I definitely think I'm going to focus on Paladin's Grace now because I'm having a great time with this, and I also read very slow, so I'm excited to see how many books I can physically read in 24 hours. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be that many, but we'll see. I cannot believe that I've been reading for like 9.5 hours and I still have not finished a book. Like I said, I'm a slow reader, but also to give myself the benefit of the doubt, I was reading 2 books at the same time when I first started this, so I don't know, it doesn't matter. It does not matter how many books I finish, okay? As long as I'm having fun, that's what matters. Anyways, I made it to page 3. Oh, also, before I forget, it's the same day. I just changed, but I made it to page 237 in this book, so I'm pretty far. And I'm actually quite enjoying it right now. I don't think it's gonna be like my next favorite read. I don't think it's a 5-star, and I'm actually surprised at how character focused this book is. And it does also focus a lot on the romance as well, but so far it's been mostly tension and understanding our characters' backstories. And it mentions on the back that they witness a attempt gone wrong, and we haven't seen that yet, I don't think. Oh wait, yeah, we have. I just didn't realize that that's what that was. Oh my goodness. Never mind. But it also says, now the pair must navigate a web of treachery beset on all sides by spies and prisoners while a cryptic killer stalks one step behind. I feel like they are really not doing that much when it comes to like this whole killer aspect. It almost feels like that's a subplot and this is just like super character focused and more so focused on the romance, which I don't mind, but I feel like if you were going to pick up this book and expect a fantasy, you might be a little bit disappointed. But also, I feel like towards the end of fantasy books is when things get a little bit more crazy, a little bit more chaotic, and obviously I'm not there yet. And like I said, I am enjoying the romance in this book, but they are starting to annoy me. Sorry the lighting keeps changing. I'm outside on the porch, but like I said, I am really enjoying the romance in this book, but they're also starting to annoy me a little bit because they both have something in their heads that they are convinced is true about themselves, and it's not. Well, okay, it's most likely not true. We don't know 100% for sure that it is true or not, but it's very obvious to me that it's going to be a reason to why they don't get together for a while, or maybe it's going to be something with the 3rd act breakup. It's just very obvious to me that it's going to play a bigger part in the story, and so when it keeps getting brought up, I'm kind of a little frustrated because like I said, I'm already convinced that it's like not that big of a deal and they're just making it a really big deal. I don't know, but it's also just frustrating in general to me when a book brings up something multiple times. It's one of my pet peeves when it comes to reading. It's like I don't need to know the same thing over and over. Like I understood the first time, you know? So that annoys me just a little bit, but I am still really enjoying it. So we will see where things go from here. I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is that I hit my goal. I read over 12 hours today and I finished Paladin's Grace. I did really enjoy this book, but I think I'm gonna give it a 3-star. I didn't love the structure of the book. I actually wish we got more background on the Paladins before jumping into this story. I feel like that would have really helped build Stephen's character and also just build the camaraderie between all of the Paladins, because we didn't see how close they all were until the end of the book, and I feel like the whole found family aspect was missing in the beginning part of the book because like I said, we didn't see it until the very end. And then also I did find this book to be pretty predictable, but for me it's still a 3-star because I really liked Stephen and Grace in their relationship, but there's just a couple things I would have tweaked plot wise to make it less predictable, which is the main reason that this book isn't higher than a 3-star, which a 3-star is not bad by any means. I still very much recommend this book, especially if you are someone getting into fantasy. I feel like this would be a good one to read. But it is time for the bad news because I did decide to DNF the Iliad. I just was not enjoying this book. I made it about a 1/4 of the way through and I really didn't like it. I found myself almost making myself read it and I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is the problem that I have, and I know I have this problem, and I just need to get better about DNFing. So this is one step in the right direction. I wasn't having fun. I wasn't enjoying this. Most of what I was reading was just going over my head, and I was like, why am I still trying to read this when I can just pick up other things? Like, I brought so many other books with me, and they're books that I actually really want to read. So I just decided I am for sure DNFing the Iliad. It might be a soft DNF. I might come back to it. I don't know. Especially because I love the copy of the Iliad that I have. I will not be getting rid of that copy. It's leather bound and I thrifted it and I love it so much. So maybe one day in the future I will read that. But for now, it is a definite DNF. And I'm going to pick out my next book. Probably won't read for a ton this evening because I do want to get in a quick workout. And after that, I'll probably just shower, get ready for bed, and then read in bed until my eyes start to close of their own accord. So we will catch up in the morning. I have about 7.5 hours left, and I actually started The Husband's Secret last night. And this book follows our main character Cecilia, who finds a letter written by her husband, and it's addressed saying to read it only in the event of his death. And her husband is still alive, and so she calls him and she's like, haha, I found this letter. And he's like, oh my goodness, you found my letter. And then he starts acting really weird, and so things kind of spiral from there. And I'm actually really enjoying this book, which is a good thing because I'm also flying through it. I made it to page 220, so I'm over halfway through. And the way it's structured is so interesting because at first I actually wasn't enjoying this book because in the very beginning it's almost like we're getting a bunch of different people's lives, and it's like, why do I care about any of these characters? Because all their lives felt very distinct and different. And you don't know how they connect until maybe about like a fourth of the way through, or maybe at least just a couple chapters through. It's really not that too far into the book where you figure out how they all connect. And so at the beginning, when you first switch point of views, you're kind of like, who is this person? And why is she calling this other person fat so many times? Like, it was actually crazy. I was like, okay, our main character is losing her mind. What just happened here? Because at first I thought it was the same person, and I was like, what is going on? Does she have an alter ego? Like, I was so confused. But then you figure out she's calling her fat so many times because this other lady was having an affair with her husband. But based on the back of the book, I really thought that we were only going to be following Cecilia, which is why I was so confused. But I should have known because I've read other Liane Moriarty books, and she does this a lot with her writing. We're following multiple characters and then they kind of like weave into the story. And I do feel like her writing is very distinct. She has a very strong voice in her writing. So I almost feel like if you've read maybe like 2 of her books and you don't like them, I don't know, I feel like maybe that's saying something, you know what I mean? Which is not bad. You don't have to like every single writer you encounter. I'm just saying I was shocked because I think that this is my second book from her, and so I was not expecting her voice to be so distinct like it is. Like, when I first started reading this book, I was like, wow, this was reminding me so much of, I think it was Big Little Lies that I've read from her. Another thing I really appreciate is that we already know what's in the letter. I thought that the letter would be kind of hanging over the plot this entire time, and I'm so glad that it's not, because that's one of my pet peeves in books. And so when I went into this book, I was kind of scared that that would happen and that I wouldn't end up liking this book. And I'm also so shocked that I did not have a hypothesis of what was going to be in this letter, because I feel like some people will be able to guess what was in this letter, but when I read it, I was actually shocked that I gasped. Like, I gasped out loud. It was crazy. But also, I know I just said so many positive things about this book. I have one negative thing to say, and it is that I have a pet peeve when authors do this, and it's when an author describes a character as having OCD because their house is super clean. That just bothers me so much because I feel like it diminishes what OCD actually is, and that happened once in this book. I mean, it doesn't happen like a ton of times, but it did happen in this book, and that was kind of frustrating. And also, this book does talk a lot about grief, so there are pretty sad moments sprinkled throughout the book, so I would check the trigger warnings if you're thinking about reading this one. But other than that, I am really enjoying it, which I think is why I'm flying through it. It actually feels like 2 seconds has passed and I've read like a million pages. There's just something about this where I feel like I am stepping into the book, and that is exactly what I needed for this rainy summer morning. I have about 3 hours and 15 minutes left on the timer, and I finished The Husband's Secret. I finished this about an hour ago, but I did take a break for lunch, and I started my next read as well, which we'll get to that in a second. But first, my thoughts on this book. I decided I'm going to rate this a 3.5 stars. I was really enjoying this book in the beginning, and for for the longest time I thought it was going to be a 4-star. But unfortunately, I guessed a lot of what happened towards the end of the book. And if you've read this book, like I'm talking about, as soon as we get to the park, I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna happen. And then I was like, wait, actually I think this is gonna happen. Which one thing I guessed pretty early on, and then one thing I just guessed like 2 chapters before it actually happened. So that wasn't a huge deal to me, but as one of my annoyances with a book is I don't want to be able to guess things. It just sucks that I finished 2 books in a row in this video where I complained about it being slightly predictable. But other than that, I did really enjoy this book, and I am going to keep reading more of her work. Like I said, she has such a distinct voice, so I feel like if you pick up one of her books and you like her writing, then you have high potential to like other books by her as well. And I did really enjoy the structure of this one. It was very character focused while also mixing in some different plot elements that I enjoyed as well. But like I said, just slightly too predictable. And then I picked up my next and final book for this video. I definitely don't think I'm going to finish this book in the allotted 24 hours, but I do want to at least share my thoughts on this video because I hope that I will at least get halfway through the book in this video. And that is The Last Mona Lisa. This is one of those books that I just stumbled upon in a used bookstore, and it really caught my eye because I had no idea that the Mona Lisa was ever stolen. This is an historical fiction that follows the great-grandson of the thief that stole the Mona Lisa. And so far, it seems like we're going to get at least 3 different point of views, and then we also get his great-grandfather's journals. And that's one of my favorite things that a historical fiction book often does, is when it incorporates like these journals or letters or any type of aspect like that. I really enjoy. So I do have high hopes for this one. I'm trying to kind of tamper my expectations because I don't want to be disappointed, but so far so good. I mean, I'm only on chapter 5, which is page 28, so a lot of things can change from here, but I am enjoying it so far. This is also the first thing I've read from this author, so I'm excited to try out a new author as well. I made it to page 119 in The Last Mona Lisa. This book is really making me want to go to an art museum because they talk about art a lot in this book, and I'm not really into art that much. So I do feel like this book would be more enjoyable for people that are really into art. But like I said, I'm not one of those people, and so unfortunately I'm finding this book just a little bit lackluster. I am only on page 119, so there's a lot of this book left, but so far I'm not loving it. It is very, very slow moving, and I'm hoping that's just because we're setting things up and that things kind of start to pick up the pace here, but as of right now it's just a little bit too slow paced, and it's like, okay, what's the point here? We've got to get somewhere eventually. Also, there's something kind of weird that the author does, and don't misconstrue what I'm about to say, okay, because there's a lot of dialogue in this book, but sometimes in the middle of a conversation, instead of continuing the dialogue, it'll kind of summarize the conversation in a quick paragraph. So instead of just going through the entire conversation, it'll just skip a part of it and then summarize it in a paragraph. So it'll be like, and then they talked about this, or and then he said this, to which she said this, and they talked about this. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like that. And at first I didn't mind that, but now that I'm a little bit bored and starting to critique the book a little bit more, and because we're so far in, I feel like more should be happening, that structure in these conversations is starting to bother me, because at first I was hoping that he was doing that to kind of hurry along the story, but that doesn't seem to be the case. It does not feel like the story is in a rush by any means. So we'll see how much I can read in the next like 45-ish minutes. My 24 hours is up. I did it. I have officially read for 24 hours. I actually read less than I thought I would this video. I literally started out this video with a stack of maybe like 10, 12, maybe 15 books. I don't know. But I was convinced that I could read a ton in 24 hours, which as a slow reader, I could not. I ended up reading 3-ish books. We'll get into all my Patreons and all of that. We'll start with The Husband's Secret, which is 445 pages. And then I did read about a fourth of the Iliad before DNFing it. So I'm gonna say I read about 148 pages of the Iliad. Oh wait, I meant to be going in order. This is not in order. Oh well. I tried. I also read Paladin's Grace, which is 399 pages. And then my last book, which was The Last Mona Lisa, I got to page 152. So I read a good amount of pages. And although I did not finish The Last Mona Lisa in this video, I do want to give you my final thoughts. So when I finish this book in the next day or two, I will let you know my final thoughts. But as of right now, I am not loving this book. I'm actually very much not enjoying it. I don't like the writing style at all, which doesn't make it bad. It's just not a style for me. And I've read other other books that are written in this manner that I also didn't enjoy, but obviously I didn't know that going into it. And that also doesn't mean it's a bad book by any means. Like I said, it's just a writing style that I don't love, but I do kind of want to finish it, or at least keep reading and see if I start liking it more. But we'll see. I will share my final thoughts. I finished the last Mona Lisa yesterday, so here are my final thoughts. I am gonna give this a 2-star. I just really didn't love the writing style. It has very concise sentences, which sometimes I like, sometimes I don't, but it does a lot of telling and not showing, which I really don't like. Also, I've never met a main character that can just read everyone's emotions like this main character can. And also just like in general in real life, like no one can just magically read other people's emotions like this, so that took me out of the story a lot. Also, I almost wish we had less point of views, because since you're in all these different point of views, nothing is a surprise to us, but it is a surprise to the main character. So like when he finds out, he's super surprised, but we're just kind of sitting there like, okay, I already knew that, so I don't really care that you're surprised because I'm not surprised. Also, everyone he met in both France and Italy, when they're from America, they seem to just immediately be from New York City, which is just not realistic at all. So yeah, overall, I did not enjoy this one, but I did want to give my final thoughts in this video. But that is it for this video. Let me know if you enjoyed the 24-hour readathon, and if you want to see more 24-hour readathons from me, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!